I can bring it to you, but I can't give it to you. You got to reach for it. If they were free at Toys R Us, you'd reach, you'd step. I'm giving you the same kind of gift, just not wrapped up. Gift of knowledge.
Back now on America's Forum, we just got a glimpse of what goes on in the classroom of 5th grade teacher Bob Zimmerly. Bob teaches at Rochester Prep Charter School, one of 42 college prep schools opened and run by an organization called Uncommon Schools. And that organization is dedicated to closing the achievement gap and preparing low-income students to go to college and to graduate from college. Deeply involved with Uncommon Schools is Doug Lemov, the managing director of that organization's I got to get an education on how to say this, Doug, Taxonomy Project. I hope I got that right. Doug is also the author of the book, Teach Like a Champion. He's updated it. It's Teach Like a Champion 2.0. So I'll have to work on taxonomy, Doug, and my apologies. Miranda and I are glad to welcome you in here to America's Forum.
Oh, I'm really glad to be here. And you nailed taxonomy. I thought you got it just right.
Just took me a second to get taxonomy. Don't ask me to spell, though. Hey, let's talk about writing the book. You did a rewrite. Your first edition sold what, over 800,000 copies?
It sold a lot. But, you know, I felt like as teachers would come to me and say, oh, I read your book, thank you, it was helpful, or, you know, whatever they would say. And, you know, after I wrote the book, I kind of kept going with the core idea, which is if you want to know what works in the classroom, you should study highly successful teachers. And what happened when the original book went out there is that great teachers took the ideas and they said, you know, I really like this idea, but I want to tweak it a little bit and I want to make it more rigorous. And so continued to study teachers and see that they did amazing things with the original ideas in the book. And pretty soon I started to feel like I got to get this stuff out there because I've learned even more in the time since I wrote the original book than in all the time I spent studying before I wrote that book. And you know, I learned a lot of new things, things that were probably obvious all along, but I just saw teachers doing these things and I had to get it out there, if nothing else, to honor their incredible work in the classroom.
Well, give us some insight into that. What do you think is necessary for developing these outstanding teachers?
Well, I think technique is really important. You know, some people say, well, you know, teaching is something that just can't be taught, it can't be learned. But I really disagree. You know, one of the things I found when I went out to find high-performing teachers in low-income schools is that they're every shape and variety and style. And so anyone can do it with diligence and attentiveness to the craft. So one thing that to me is really important in a great teacher, and in the new version of Teach Like a Champion, it's the first 2 chapters are about this idea. It's called Check for Understanding. And maybe the best summary of it actually comes from the great basketball coach John Wooden, who said, you have to understand the difference between I taught it and they learned it. So I know that I can stand up in front of a class and talk about the Industrial Revolution for 50 minutes, but that's very different from whether at the end of those 50 minutes my students understand what I talked about. And so there are all kinds of very technical, practical things that teachers do to allow them to understand in the middle of the lesson, how much do my students know and understand about what I'm talking about? And that notion of like I need to be measuring as I go and understanding what my students know is really critical. And it's not easy, and it takes practice, and it takes studying and learning from your peers to become great at it.
You mentioned studying and learning. There is a new study that's been released by the University of Amsterdam suggesting that praising children too much could lead to narcissism. Now, you've also said it's the time to stop praising kids. Do we completely stop the praise, or do we modify it, Doug?
We don't stop praising kids, we modify it. One of the things I talk about in the book is the power of differentiating acknowledgement from praise. Acknowledgement and praise are both forms of positive reinforcement. Acknowledgement to me is what you do when a student or a child, your own child, meets expectations. They've done what you expect of them. And acknowledgement sounds like this: thank you, that's exactly how we do it. I appreciate you're doing that. That's it. I see you doing it. Thank you for having your pencil out. That's very different from praise, which is, that's so fantastic you have your pencil out. And what happens when you praise students for meeting your expectation is you make it seem like you're surprised that they met your expectations, and that has the result in the long run of lowering your expectations. And so one of the very small things that we practice with teachers, they want to be enthusiastic when they get to the classroom and they're new to the job, and they want to be positive, and so they sometimes do overpraise. So practicing differentiating acknowledgement from praise, acknowledging when students meet your expectations, and saving your praise for things that really are exceptional. In the long run, it's powerful because it makes your praise meaningful, and when you want to say, that was great, it means great.
And what I have to say to you right now is thank you, Doug, and we invite you back to stay with us after the break as we continue to talk about stories in education. Doug Lemov remains with us here on America's Forum.
She's spending more time in front of the TV, okay, and in her room playing.
Have you reached out to the principal?
Not to the principal, but the teachers used to say this is the new policy because the homework is making stress for the kids.
Without homework, we don't know. We don't have any clue what are they taking at school.
You can't control the kids in this generation without homework.
A couple of concerned parents of students attending PS 116 in Kips Bay, New York, reacting to the school's new policy of not assigning homework.
Yeah, they're a little upset because the principal and the school decided that too much homework, or any homework at all, has negative effects on the students, such as frustration, exhaustion, and a loss of interest in learning.
Well, let's learn more as we continue our conversation with Doug Lemov, noted author and one who works in the education trenches, as it were, with Uncommon Schools. Doug, the whole issue of homework, as a student I hated it, but there are the parents saying the kids need homework. Now the principal at school says no homework. What's the right answer?
Well, as soon as you say homework, I go right to being a parent. I have 3 kids of my own. And as a parent, do I want homework for my kids? Absolutely. Do I feel like it's important for them, it's necessary for them to learn study habits and to learn to work independently and to learn to develop their ideas? Are the hours they spend in school sufficient? No, they need homework. But I would say it's important, if we're going to do homework, to do it well. And there's a difference between high-value homework and low-value homework, and efficient homework and inefficient homework. So let's make sure that if we're going to do homework, we do it really well. And so how do you do that? How do you do homework well? Well, I would solve that the way that I solve any education problem, which is I would find the top-performing teachers, the best teachers, the people who do it best, and study what they do and what makes them different from the average homework. So we say, yeah, let's make a commitment to doing this. Kids need it, but let's make sure we do it well and efficiently so they can also have lives that are productive outside of school.
What are some mistakes that you see happening? I understand what you're saying as a parent and a teacher. A lot of parents argue that their kids need homework, but I also know, and I can recall my own mother saying, geez, this is an awful lot of homework. And we'd always have, every once in a while, that teacher, you know what I'm talking about, that would assign a huge paper or a bunch of homework right before your school vacation.
Yeah.
You see that? So
one of the first things we realized that we needed to do, yeah, it's a great question. One of the first things we realized that we needed to do at Uncommon Schools was to coordinate homework. Of course there are times in your life as a teacher when you have to give a longer assignment. It's just bad when every teacher gives the longer assignment on the same night. And so there has to be ways for us to coordinate when we're giving homework, when we're giving a large assignment, letting our colleagues know, and even having, let's say, a board up in the staff room where you can tell your colleagues, hey, I'm given a really big assignment in English on Tuesday night, so go easy if you're the math teacher. So a little bit of coordination is great. I think it's reasonable to give teachers guidelines. Let's shoot for 10 to 15 minutes of high quality, really rigorous thinking, 5 nights a week, and 1 night a week you can go above that, and 1 night a week you can give the kids a day off. And that gives teachers parameters that they can shoot for. So I don't think those challenges are beyond the management of a well-run school.
So realistically, how much time, you just said again, how much time should the students be spending on homework every night? What's realistic?
Well, I'll tell you my opinion, and then I would say the only thing I know about my opinion is that it's wrong, and I would go to a group of teachers and parents and aggregate the sum of their answers to come up with what's probably right. But I think it's productive when my kids have about an hour and a half of homework a night, and it's really high quality,
right?
And they have to think deeply, and then they go on to their lives. What I think is the problem is homework that's a waste of time. I think that's what frustrates people. If students are, if they're writing and it's rigorous writing and they have to take their ideas and revise them and reflect on them, first of all, I think the time flies past because it's demanding cognitively, but that's worth their time.
And speaking of time, we're out of it, Doug Lemov. We really appreciate it.
Put your pencils down, everybody.
We need those number 2 pencils. Actually, we need to get a copy of the new book, Teach Like a Champion 2.0. That's the latest iteration of a best-selling book by Doug Lemov that is out there for teachers and parents and, dare I say, students alike. I'm still struggling with taxonomy, which Doug is in charge of for Uncommon Schools.
He gave you an A?
Well, he said I pronounced it right, but he didn't ask me to define
didn't
it.
praise you, he
I'll get
acknowledged
my
it.
homework done, and we'll be back right after this.